Remember on Monday, we ended up just doing Mafia, opening up for Unit 8, and then making sure that is completed. Ideally, it's completed by tomorrow to help you out the quiz. And then tomorrow's quiz, Friday, we'll see you. Monday next week, it's a full week. We'll work through rotations and do some work at symmetry. And then next Friday will be our last quiz, and then we'll talk about the test after break. Just timing wise with Thanksgiving, you can't get that test in before. So we'll be when we come back. Anything else to tell? I've been fighting allergies myself. My voice is here, not strong, so all I ask is I'll do my best to keep it going, but keep it kind down. They'll be in a hand up second day.
Um, for tomorrow, they said that for tomorrow we're doing after the test. I mean, after the quiz, we're doing the 12 and math year. Are we gonna skip it?
No, so it's gonna be the next one.
Okay.
It, they updated the program, and I didn't update that. It used to be 12, and I did much changes to that.
Okay.
All right, so let's go ahead and start this off. William, what do you got? Option number 2? Sure. All right, let's take a look here, boys and girls. Number 2 starts it off. Maybe. All right, number 2 right here. Writing a translation rule for that. All right, so writing that translation rule. Okay. It's going to look something like this for sure. Starting off with, to create triangle prime. But then the question is, which way, AB or BA? And it depends on how it's being phrased here. The solid figure is the pre-image, the dotted figure is the image. So which one was there first, the solid or the dashed? Solid was there first, something happened to it, and what happened to it? Yeah, it went from here up and to the left, right? So I'm using that segment as my guide then. So as I look at that, in order to go up and to the left, that means B also had to do the same thing, go up and to the left. So what I was looking for then is that rule right there. If you said AB, then that would have implied that the dashed was there first, the pre-image, and you slid down and to the right, and then if you wrote AB, that's what would have happened. It's all about how it's phrased right there. It does matter in that order of things. Okay. So on the other one, well, I guess that's number 2. Never mind. All right, other ones from Friday's side, Sam.
Can you go over 1B?
1B. Sure. Let's take a look at 1B real quick. Maybe. Come on. So just doing a reflection of that line. So as you reflect this over that line, again, that's where we're using our patty paper. If you do need some patty paper today, again, it's right over there by my cart. So as you reflect that over that line, all right, should be a flip over that. I'm just going to kind of fudge it here a bit, but it should be all equidistant. So K from here gives me K prime should be equidistant to the line of reflection. L is here. L prime should be the same distance, roughly right there. And then J is here, and J prime should be, give or take. Yeah, I mean, I got something. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. But if you can take your paper once you put on that paper, if you can take that paper and fold it on the reflection line, and those 2 triangles land on top of one another, then you're good to go. I've had people in the past, they're taking their quiz, they're literally folding their paper just to check, I don't care. All right, check their answer. So that's what should be happening. Okay? Well, I'm gonna get Grace, and I'll come back to you. Yeah, Grace. 7A. 7A. All right, let's take like 7A's on the back side. Yeah.
Or 7.
Just 7. Okay. All right, 7 here. What do we got? Write a rule that is illustrating the company diagram. So how can we get this onto there? Well, I can see it's a flip and it's a reflection then, right? Now, on your reflection here, when you write a rule, I'll take it a few different ways. You can have the new updated way to write that, or we can use a capital R, and say, here, we've talked about this a few times, it's a parabola. All right, you could say parabola, the pre-image gets reflected over something, and you get parabola prime, if I could spell. Or you could just say it's a reflection over something, and that something is that's the part that I care about. Okay, so what is that reflection line? Yep, right there. That's the part that I care about. You writing like this, or you just saying in words, I'm fine either one. But what I do want to see is the reflection line. So you would say y equals 2, or just say right here, reflection over y equals 2. That's what I want. Okay. On letter B, it looks like I have another, I think, reflection happening there. This is again where I'm just kind of playing with that in my head there. Does that flip over? It does. Now here, it looks like it's the x-axis. But I'm just going to count to make sure it is the x-axis. So when I look at B to B prime here, B is 1, 2, 3. B prime is 1, 2, 3. That appears to check out. So this one here, this is going to be reflected over the, yep. And again, you can write it in words, or you could write it up like we did up there. Now how you write it up, it's pretty lenient. I just use generic parabola. Here you could say triangle, or you could actually name out the triangle, triangle ABC, and get triangle A prime, B prime, C prime. But what you gotta then state is, what are you reflecting it over then? Okay? And the last one should be a translation. All right, now in the translation, on this one here, again, it's not stellar because they don't necessarily, you don't have any, what's the word I'm looking for? They're not on a coordinate grid or anything like that, so you don't know how much you're translating it. All right, so here, we'll just keep it like this. Whoops. Again, first thing I'm looking for is you to know it's a translation. Triangle RST, R prime, S prime, T prime. Now we did one like this in the in our notes. There's not a segment to follow through. I think it was Lillian asked question 2 on the other side a few minutes ago. There is a segment that is kind of our guide. I don't have that there. So what we then can just say is pick a point on the triangle, and whatever R goes to R prime, the rest of the triangle follows that same rule. So if they don't give you like a segment as a guide to follow, kind of like a key, a legend to follow, then you just pick a point on there and follow it to the image. Okay? Am I going to ask you something crazy like that? Probably not. It's not crazy. It's just a little off. Okay? If I'm going to give you something, probably more along the lines of this right here. Or it's a translation, that'd be like number 2 on the other side, or in a corner. Caleb, back to you. 4. All right, let's look at number 4 here. Only key on this one is knowing what does x equals 1 look like. X equals 1 is a what? Horizontal or vertical line? Yep, it better be a vertical line. X equals 1, right there. Reflected over. F and W come on to the other side, and what happens to L? L prime stays right where it's at. Yep, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. There it is. But you gotta know x equals 1's vertical. If it said y equals 1, then you better cross it as a horizontal. Okay. Anything else anybody got? Any questions in preparation for quiz as well? 11. All right, let's go find 11 here. So I don't remember which class it was, but when you do a translation rule and you follow by another translation rule, bring them together. So when we look at this one here, when we say 3 to the right, and then 2 to the right, so if we go 3 to the right, all right, we stop. Yes, we go down 1, but then we go 2 more to the right. What essentially can we combine that into? 5, yeah, 5 to the right. Now we went 1 unit down, but then we're gonna turn and go 1 unit up. So if we go 1 down and then go back 1 up, what's that a change of?
0.
You're not changing anything. So 5 to the right, going to the right is positive, and going down but back up is a change of 0, like you said. So we can say y. If you put that in words, okay, but if it starts off with this notation, what I'm looking for is the following notation goes with that. Okay, usually won't write it in words then at that point. Good question there. Anything else anybody's got? Go ahead. 5. All right, let's take a look at number 5 here. Okay, so actually what we kind of just talked about. So number 5, before I go and do this one myself, is I'm just going to take those two translations and make them one, and then I'm going to apply that to letter D. So x plus 2x minus 6. That can combine, and basically x plus 2x minus 6 is just x minus 4. 2 to the right, then 6 to the left. 1 up, and then 4 down is going to be y minus 3. So I'm going to take that combined rule and now go back and apply it to the pre-image. So d prime will be at where? 3 minus 4, and negative 2 minus 3 is negative 5. Yep. Anything else? All these questions we're going over, these are quiz questions, so they're all good questions.
And then what did for 6, wouldn't it just flip?
The signs are going to change.
Yeah, like wouldn't it -2?
So, as we talked about this, I don't know which day it was anymore, but there is a pattern happening when you reflect over just the x or just the y axis. These signs are going to flip. Knowing which sign flips when, if you can remember it every time like that, cool. If you don't remember it, take a point, just make a sketch. You know, maybe I go on to the quiz and I find point C. C is at 3, 4 here. If I reflect it over the y-axis, well, where's my new location going to be? It's going to be right here at, as I'm counting right, 1, 2, 1, yep. It's going to be right here at negative 3, 4. That was a reflection over the y-axis. And what happened? The x changed its sign. So over the y-axis, it changes x, and what happens over the x-axis? It changes its y. So when I look at this one here, if I reflect it over the x-axis, it's positive 3, it's going to become negative 3. Now when I reflect it over the y-axis, the x is going to stay the same, but this is going to become its opposite. So the final location should be right there. Okay. Doesn't change it both. Each reflection does one, but because both the reflections are in here, it does change both. Next. 9. Follow the point. Tell me how we're moving from negative 3 to negative 5. So how do you move from
9.
negative 3 to negative 5? Oh, sorry. That's 8, isn't it? My bad. Try this again. So if triangle ABC is all on quadrant 3, get your head going. Where's quadrant 3 located at? Quadrant 3 is the bottom one here, right? And then you reflect it over the y-axis. Where is it going to be in at? It's going to be in quadrant 4. Okay, make sure you know your quadrants. 1, 2, 3, and 4. If it was quadrant 2, then it would have been a reflection over the x-axis. Anything else everybody's got? All good questions here. Okay. So the usual. Make sure your name's on. Throw in the basket as you get ready to do that. I'm gonna pass out the quiz review for you. Wherever I put it. Okay, let's take a look here. So on that quiz review, it should look pretty actually similar to what we just went through some questions on the homework from last night. Okay. As I'm looking at through this quiz review, between what we just went over and the review, and again, that's that quiz. There should not be anything crazy there. The only thing I kind of noticed a little bit on the quiz review, take a look at question 1, A and B. It says reflect over the x-axis and y-axis, which is fine. There's no issues with that. What I noticed is I guess I don't have a question that necessarily reflects over like x equals 1 or y equals 2. All right. So let's just modify that real quick. When I say reflect over the y-axis, Parker looks like you already did that. So let's do letter B then for you, Parker. Did you do B yet? No? Okay. Let's modify letter B for Parker's sake. Instead of saying the x-axis, let's say we reflected over y equals, y equals 1. Okay? X-axis, y-axis, that's pretty impossible to screw up. Is it possible? Yes. But it's pretty hard to screw that one up. But y equals 1 and x equals 1 and x equals 3, that's where the mistakes usually happen. So one more time, as we've worked throughout this school year, reviewing horizontal and vertical lines, when we say reflect over y equals 1, you got to bring it into your head. What do we have? Horizontal or vertical, y equals 1.
I mean, horizontal.
There you go.
Doing horizontal.
I know. So Caleb's up here saying vertical, so that is horizontal, but he's got it. So highlight that line of reflection and then reflect it over. Okay? Keep encouraging to highlight that line of reflection and then bring it over that. So everything is, when you reflect it over to get its images, everything is going to be an equidistant from that line of reflection. So L is 1 away, L prime is 1 away. M is how far? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. M prime is. What's P? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. P prime is 3. And what's K? 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. K prime. And as we keep telling you, when you do reflection, whatever you get, you can fold that paper along that reflection line, it should match up. Okay? If it said x equals 3, x equals negative 3, make sure you make it vertical. Okay? Good.
When it's just talking about the
X-axis.
x-axis, isn't it? Like this instead of like this.
Yep. X-axis is right here, right?
Yeah.
And you just said this was y equals 1 is horizontal, right? And if I said y equals negative 1, you would do that, right? Or if I said y equals 0, y equals 0 is another way to phrase as the x-axis, right?
Oh.
Yeah, so, if you got y equals 1, 2, 3, or y equals negative 2, negative 5, or they do something odd, say y equals 0, it's just another way to talk about the x-axis. Okay? If they said x equals 0, now we know x equals is vertical. When they say x equals 0, x equals 0 is another way to talk about the y-axis. All right, as you're looking through things here, number 3 is what I want to point out to you. This would be one where I'll use my padding paper, okay? And reflect it over each line. When we talked about reflecting over lines there that don't have a coordinate grid, that's where, again, I would use padding paper. If you need some, again, it's underneath my card there. The thing that I want to always kind of stress to you about, like number 3, where you're doing these, where you're not on the coordinate grid, and the same can be true for, maybe it's the next page, I guess, okay? If I have anything there, I guess I did. Maybe it was last night's stuff. But the same can be true for asking you to reflect it over something here, and there's no, again, coordinate grid. Watch your equidistance, okay? So when I reflect that 4 over that first line, reflect over line L. So patty paper we go, we put on the 4, we put on the L, and then we, flip the paper, right? And as we flip the paper, line up your patty paper again with the reflection line, put your pencil underneath, and where should the 4 be located, and what should be the orientation be? Mine is not going to look stellar, but it is what it is. Okay? 4 should look something like that. Okay, it should be about that orientation. But watch the equidistance part of it. Now, take that one and reflect it over line M. And this is the mistake I usually see, and I will take off on this one. What I am looking for is one of two things. The orientation of it, it gets flipped over. That's one thing I'm looking for. And I'm also keeping in mind that distance from the line of reflection. So I'm going to take this 4 and now reflect it over line M. And what I notice here is, what a lot of students will do, they get the orientation right, you're going to end up with that same orientation. Okay? You're going to get the same thing there. But it's the distance that most people mess up on. This 4 that I reflect back over should be equidistant. And what I see students do is put that 4 right about there. That's not correct. This 4 goes over line M. So where should that be more located at? Should be kind of further. Whoops, that's not what I would do. And still not that. Where's my grabbing finger? Boom, boom, boom. There we go. Nope. Definitely not that. Doing all that crap. What's next? Grabbing it. Well, should just let me grab it, but it's not. I'll just redraw it. So anyway, as I was saying, that 4 should be the same distance, right about more like over here. Okay? That's where I'm looking for that 4 to be. Keep that equidistance in mind. That's the biggest mistake I see with students on reflections. Coordinate grid, it's pretty hard to get screwed up, but when there's not a coordinate grid there, keep in mind that equidistant. Okay? All right, as you're just looking through things, this is your time here. As you're looking at a question here, I'll give you a minute or so. Does anybody notice a question like, oh, let's talk about that now? Because when they come in tomorrow, it's all about the quiz. 5? Sure, can you take a second here? Where's the image? Okay. So first thing kind of goes back to what we talked about again earlier. I see a reflection over the y-axis. So if you're taking that quiz tomorrow and you're not, again, remembering the rule over the y-axis of what coordinate flips on you, again, my suggestion is always this right here. Go back. Hey, take 1, 1. Where's 1, 1 at? It's right there. Keep in mind, we're reflecting over the y-axis. That's vertical. So where's A prime going to be at? Right there. And what's its new location going to be? It's going to be at negative 1, 1. It's the x coordinate that changes on you. It's kind of like the opposite of maybe what you might think. All right? Now that's not the final answer, because what else do we have? We have another reflection there, right? So now we want to reflect that over x equals 1. What does x equals 1 look like? What type of line? Yep, it's vertical, right? So x equals 1 is right there. So how far away is that A prime? How far away is that A prime to our blue reflection line there? Isn't that 2 away? So we said this was at negative 1 right here, and then that's another 1, so 1 plus 1 is 2. So when I bring it over here, what's 2 plus 1 give you? 3. Yep. The final answer is right there. Now, I did this just freehand. From my experience of taking many tests over the years, if I'm stuck on something, you're on the SAT, I guarantee you there's going to be a coordinate grid someplace on the SAT. Okay? They're not going to grade your test booklet. You can mark up your test booklet as much as you want. And I remember myself going back through doing a couple things like this. Finding a nice coordinate grid, because you can't just bust out coordinate grid out of your backpack. So go find a coordinate grid and play around with that. Get in your head of what does that do and what does that do, because you're going to totally forget about this stuff by the time you leave it. But you're not going to forget some of the basics. You're going to know what a reflection looks like. You're going to know that. It is what it is. Okay. Anything else? People are just looking at questions. You're like, let's talk about it now. This is your chance. Andrew?
Maybe
12. Okay. So we want to take what? AHS to A prime, A prime, H prime, and S prime. Now, it says a composition. We said composition is just more than one thing happening. And as we look at this here, one does not just do it for us. Something more has to happen there. More than one, two, three things might have to happen. So how can we take AHS right here? There's AHS, that's the pre-image. How can we make it look like that? How you start it off is fine. There's not a wrong way nor right way to start it off. If you have a suggestion there, Caleb, what's the first thing you might think? Reflective over what? Go easy. Go with the obvious. Reflected over what? Okay, now let's hold off on that. I would reflect it over the y-axis myself. If I reflect this over the y-axis, then I end up with an orientation that looks more like that, right? Closer to what we want to be to, right? So that's where I'm going to myself start. If you did the x-axis, all right, I'm not saying it's wrong, okay? But you're going to end up with something that looks more like that. A little bit, doesn't really help us out a lot. But I'm going to take that reflection over the y-axis. And what do we get off of that? All right, so H is how far away? 1, 2, 1, 2. S is how far? 5, 5. A is right above that at 6. So I always, again, like to kind of draw out instead of keeping in my head what we've got. And the next thing I notice is by doing the reflection over the y-axis, now we're in the same orientation, right? What do we need to do now? We just need to somehow do what with it? Translate it. Yep. Translate it which direction? Left and? So tell me that. How are we going to translate it left and down then? So translate. If you want to write the word translate in before that, that's fine too. But tell me how you're going to move it left and how you're going to move it down. Give me some directions. Left is negative, down is negative. We know that. Whoops. But how much left? How much down? How much left? Pick a point and follow it. I'm just going to take H prime. Get my H prime over here. How much is that? Yeah, it looks like 5. We're at -2. I want to get to -7, so that's a 5 to the left. How much do I need to come down? We're up here at 2. We want to get down here to 4, -4. So how much is it from 2 to -4? And then always check your rule with one of the other points. So if I do that for S, if I go what? Left 5 and then down 6, do I land where it's supposed to be? I do. And then you're good to go. So we could have done the order differently. We could have translated first and then reflected. There's more than one thing to happen there, okay? But try to go with the obvious. Get the orientation similar, and then it's usually just a translation after that. Okay? Anything else you're looking at, you want to talk about? Let's go back. It's on the other page, right? 4A. Okay. So on this one, it goes back to what we talked about maybe once or twice already today. When I look at this here, take a step back here. First off, they're using for my pre-image and image, whatever, not being very specific there. So on this one here, what is something that we might notice is happening on here? A translation or a reflection or anything more than that? Possibly a translation, but It looks like I also might have to have I'm gonna say reflection needs to happen in there. Now, as I'm looking at the shape of this triangle here, I'm pretty sure this has been reflected over, and then it looks like it's also been moved down a bit, right? So, on this one here, what I would be just looking for is something kind of generic, that a reflection happened, followed by a translation. I am not going to ask you, like on this one here, we need a very specific rule. I'm just looking generically. For you to realize that the orientation did flip, and then it did get moved down as well. So there's a reflection up there, a translation happened. I don't need to see anything more specific off of that. When you look at letter B, did the reflection happen on letter B? No, what's the only thing that really happened here? It just got slid a little bit to the right. Now, that's all I'm looking for is a translation. Okay. Anything else anybody's got? Alright, so we got about 15-ish minutes. Alright, keep working there. I'm not sure. It claims there's an answer key out there. So as you check over things, hopefully it's right. And then the Mathia, as Caleb was pointing out there, it's a typo. That should be, make sure you are through unit 9. Okay? So, not 9, what was it? Unit, yep, try this again. Unit 8. Okay? So make sure Mathia is done through unit 8 right there. And that'll be it for tomorrow. We come back next week. It's a full week, but like I said, we'll do rotations and some work with symmetry. If you haven't been bringing your compass and protractor, bring that Monday. We will be using that again for rotations. We'll talk about that. That's a funky one. There's no way around it. It's a crappy one, but we'll do our best with it. Okay? So you got some time. Let's work out, and we'll go from there. Get questions? Let's just